Truths, and a Lie, a new Facebook Live broadcast where we're going to explore various topics in business and marketing through the lens of two truths and one myth or something that isn't really true, but people commonly believe it is. And we're also going to have this Facebook Live available on LinkedIn from the Before Alpha website. And I'm joined here actually by my co-host, Gregarious Narain, who is the partner and founder of Before Alpha. And today we're going to talk about influencer marketing because there are a whole lot of both truths, but also myths that are out there in the marketplace about influencer marketing. And one of them is, there's more than I can say. So Greg, thanks for joining me and for being here on Facebook Live and doing this fun, cool show with me.
I appreciate it. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yes, and we're going to try to do this every week, but things may happen. The reason I love Two Truths and a Lie is because it is a common meme that everyone can kind of put their head around and understand. And I wanted to start basically, first of all, to make sure you all watch to the end, I'm going to share two truths and a lie about myself. And my two truths and a lie are, I used to be a long-term fan of the soap opera General Hospital. I watched it for years and years and years and years and years. I no longer do, but I used to watch it a lot. Secondly, I have testified in Congress, which was an interesting experience. And third, I have been to all 50 states, and that too is pretty interesting, and it takes a lot of work to get to all 50 states. So at the end, I'll tell you which one of those things was a lie. Next time, we'll get Greg's two truths and a lie, because I didn't ask him to prep for it, so he probably didn't do that. So
I was just trying to make things come through.
Yeah, no. People who know me well already know, by the way, which one of those is the lie, but I figured it'll work. So the first truth about influencer marketing, I think that I really want to talk about today is that the marketplace is consolidating. And just this morning, IZEA announced, not surprising to me, that it was acquiring Tap Influence. I think it's a perfect marriage because IZEA has a great brand name, but its software services platform isn't that strong, at least in my opinion. And Tap has decent technology, but they've really struggled, I think, with profitability and with the size and quality of their network. Greg, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's there's a lot of these businesses that suffered through similar fates, like Buddy Media comes to mind, and there tends to be a pattern in software worlds of like trying to create something not scalable and then try and make it scalable. And then the flip side also happens. You tend to have like sometimes agencies create big businesses and sort of manually put these pieces together and then try and like replace parts with more regimented software parts. And I think that the point you made is really powerful about things sort of like there's a good convergence or synergy sort of in them being able to bring like some software practices and scalability to the fore, but with the scale that IZEA actually has on the table already.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, there's been a lot of consolidation already in this marketplace. Last year, Viacom acquired Whosay. Now we have IZEA acquiring Tap Influence. There's tons and tons of little Instagram players, and some of them are no longer with us. And there's a lot of smaller players. But I also think there's going to be further consolidation because there's only so many platforms that can be supported in something like this, particularly, as you say, as a lot of the agencies and brands are creating their own little mini platforms and aren't actually using third-party tools.
Yeah, there's always that interesting sine wave with brands and agencies, sort of like, hey, we want to do everything. No, we don't want to do anything. Hey, we want to do everything, right? And they sort of like keep offsetting and then bringing in-house. And that cycle, I think, does lead to either like a false sense of safety, like that, oh, we can build our own solution. So like we'll actually go build this now because now we understand all the requirements, but sort of like taking for granted all the underlying pieces that are actually complicated and not pretty and not well formed that actually hold that thing together with duct tape. And I find most things in the influencer space have a lot of duct tape sort of going on behind the scenes.
Well, I think that's actually the case probably with a lot of the older technologies, right? I've been a product marketer and a product developer, so I know there's a lot of duct tape in this world. And at some point, you either have to fix the duct tape or you have to buy somebody who built something better. And I think probably that's what happened this morning. Our other truth that we wanted to talk about today was that small audiences can be more effective than big ones. And I think this one is like the most self-evident truth to me. And thank goodness, I think influencer marketing is undergoing this shift from this hyper focus on celebrity. And you saw, Pernod's Malibu rum thing with celebrities and pineapples and all sorts of nonsense a couple of weeks ago. And we seem to be getting back to our roots as a way to activate customers as advocates. But there's a lot we still have to work out. And one of the things we've talked a lot about is that the measurement is kind of one of the issues.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I think the when I always talk about this space or this aspect of space, I almost feel like it's self-fulfilling, right? Like brands sort of did it to themselves. They overinvested, and they used the tool they knew how to use, right? Like when you're a brand, right? Like everything is reach, right? And so I think like in the early days of this space, like people really did have organic reach, right? Like early influencers actually had big organic followings, right? And as time has grown, like it's been gamed, like both from in and out, right? I think like there absolutely are influencers who have done their best to try and force as many signups, despite their necessarily like having like a good fit or a good affinity with their topic area, right? By gamifying their follower process. And then there's just bots and other things that have realized that they can get reach cheaper by sort of flooding on the other side of it, right? And so I think like now the second dimension of that, though, of course, is the pricing aspect, which as a result of that, we drove all the prices up for the celebrity and influencer side of the house as well. And that sort of relates to these new challenges of like, great, how do we bring back, how do we do this affordably again with the same level of like impact and ROI like that we were getting in the earlier days of this thing when it started?
Yeah, for me, it really comes back to that reach, as you said, and the sort of search at scale. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute, because there's also the argument, our myth is that influencer marketing is full of fraud. And I actually don't believe that. And for a lot of reasons, I'll share why. But I think reach is a delivery metric. And we sort of got hypnotized by scale and reach and bigger and more and more and more. And they forgot about things like performance and results and relationships and all those things that actually are what make influencer marketing work, because it's actually not the scale that makes it work, it's the relationship that makes it work. That's why I was like really heartened to see this week a case study on Clorox, which actually has done a really nice job of influencer marketing. I've worked with them in the past in my corporate roles, and they are using celebrities and experts and mid-tier and micro influencers, so they get it, that it's not one or the other, and you don't just have to be sort of blinded by the celebrity light, because not everybody is going to be influencer swayed by a Kim Kardashian or a Nick Jonas, whichever Jonas brother was flinging the pineapples.
I think that's absolutely true, because like I think the other problem that you see is that authenticity really was like, I think, the transformative force, like sort of our most recent generation, right? Like it is this idea that you could nuzzle up to the relatability of a person, right? So I think like, with celebrities, what they always provide is like an aspirational thing. And I think like what people have found, like social media has been done a good job of creating, is like showing you other heroes, right? Like other people who are actually much closer to you, much more like you, right? That you actually can be like in an actual relationship with, right? Or actually learn from. And I think like what you see is that it's not that celebrities will never be, I think celebrities will always be effective, right? It's just that these, the strength of the relationships is certainly greater as the audience size is smaller, right? You can even observe this just in the engagement, right? Like, I think like when the things have tipped over for an influencer, just watch watch their rate of engagement in their own comments, right? Like when they start to like sort of leave that nest, right? And aren't there sort of like participating and gathering feedback. There's a few challenges going on there that they either buckling or just moved on, right?
And that's why, sort of, again, it's a coordinated strategy, because celebrity influencers are great for top of funnel. But as you start driving down, I don't see them being that effective. And so when people are saying, well, I use these big celebrities, but it didn't drive conversion, I like look at them and I say, yeah. And did you expect it to drive conversion? Because that probably was never going to drive conversion, because celebrities don't. And before I forget, this is an unpaid placement. I love Sierra Mist. I drink it all the time. In case you see my bottle, they did not pay me for this endorsement, but I do love it. That's influence, right? Hopefully you can all go out and buy some.
And I think you're it's super spot on though, because like when you look at like the whole idea that the funnel is, I always tell people that we don't have a top of the funnel problem, right? Sorry, we don't have a bottom of the funnel problem, right? Like a marketer gets a whiff of you anywhere, everywhere, they've got you, right? They're going to work you as far as they possibly can down to the bottom. The top of the funnel is actually a big part of the problem, because like what we're missing is attention, right? Like, right, it's always these attention economics that we're sort of always trying to like navigate in one way or another. And when you think about it, like you can be a brand with 1 million subscribers or followers or whatever it's going to be, right? And then you have like this tiny participation rate, like the engagement rate is actually really small, right? And the reason is that the attention has actually been dissipated across thousands of micro channels that come in like these micro moments of like eating content here and there and on the go, right? But the closeness that we feel, you can't feel close to a brand, right? It's like really, really hard, right? Like like brands aren't actually organized and built in a way to really offer it at the scale that they need. And so what these what influencers and even celebrities that really do love these things, right? What they offer is a way to translate that relationship, right, in a more scalable way out to sort of everyone else that could potentially touch it.
Right. And that's actually a topic that I'm going to want to dig into and plan to dig into in the future, is the issue of last click attribution, because that's actually been one of the problems facing us when we think about proving that influencer marketing works, because in fact it does. But so often, and this is one of my bugaboos, so often we don't actually build a conversion into the program. We don't build a call to action. We don't build a way for someone to actually buy the damn thing. So you can't prove that it was influencer marketing that drove that purchase. But yet when you see survey after survey, and it doesn't matter, it's done by independent people, it's done by the platforms, it's done by agencies, it's done by brands, say, I have purchased something based on something I saw on social media, but we can't point to which thing and which thing, like which post and which product, because they're like, I don't remember which one it was.
Yeah.
So it's there's a lot of issues with both finding the right audience and finding the right measurement and having both things working together, which I think are things we're going to explore again a lot as we go through this conversation over the next months and weeks and days, because we have more than a few opinions. So my last thing I want to talk about, and I want to keep this sort of crisp and tight, because I promised folks that I wouldn't keep them more than 10 or 15 minutes. That's kind of my rule, is that influencer marketing is full of fraud. And I actually just want to say, no, it's not full of fraud. It's advertisers actually created the environment where we think that there is fraud, because we've prioritized scale over relationships and results. So reach in and of itself is not a result. We've gotten confused about that and focused in on the reach of these influencers, and they reach 1 million people, and that's the result we're looking for. So as a result, and the reason that Unilever's Keith Weed said we're not going to buy programs from platforms or influencers who buy followers, is because influencers weren't held accountable. Agencies bought reach in order to say, look, we got the reach we were trying to get. And if you wanted to work on a program as an influencer, you needed to have lots of followers. So they bought followers. So we can't get too mad if we realize that we created the problem. So, I just say, make the effort to have a relationship with the people, and you'll know if their followers are real or not. And don't get blinded by that light of millions and millions of followers, because most of them are not real people anyway.
Right. Well, and I think to your point, that like as long as you learn not to use the follower account, right? Like, then you like the more you can insert a secondary motive, right? Like if it's like, great, ask an influencer, like how many clicks happened on those links, or how many people signed up, or how many people provided an email, or how many people bought this product. Like if you want to help yourself, start to ask those follow-up questions to the creators or influencers that you're working with, because then you can actually start to understand, like, who gives a crap? Like you could have 10 million followers, but like if it's the same 1,000 that always engage with you, then really what a brand just has to appreciate is that what you're really buying is access to those 1,000 people.
Right.
Right. Like that's the relationship encapsulated right down to the core of it. Right. Yeah. All that other stuff maybe is like some accidental, billboard stuff, right? That like happens on the side of the highway that maybe I saw it. Right. But the reality is it's those people who are highly engaged that if we start to refocus on that and work upwards from it and grow that number, right? Then everything moves in the right direction. Everything lines back up the way it needs.
I actually think that's a really important point. Again, is that we may have 1 million people in our audience, but which portion of that audience is actually the right audience for that particular brand at that particular time, and starting to understand sort of, again, because you could have someone who has 1 million followers, but only 1,000, as you say, are the right ones for that particular thing. Or you have someone smaller who only has 1,000 followers, but guess what? All 1,000 are the right thing for that brand. That's right. And that micro influencer or that mid-tier influencer, depending on how you define it, I call them mid-tier, other people call them micro, is that they're the right one, and they're going to be a whole boatload cheaper for you to work with, and much more cost effective to work with than that celebrity who is got a different attitude.
And really, what's great about those people that have that 1,000, right? But they're all engaged. That creator influencer knows all of them also, right? Like they're still like basically maintain a relationship. They're probably still engaged with them, right? Like they can help you filter and self-select other specific people if there's more important things to do, right? They can tell you who, like, this is the vocal one that you probably, if you want to highlight someone, like I highly recommend it be this person, right? Like those kinds of other effects and parts of the process that I think like we take for granted, right? Because like we sort of like want to just, put the insertion order in, buy the media buy, and then like we're kind of done with it, right? And we don't want to do the other parts.
Well, and that's actually sort of one of the main things that I think about all the time is human-centered marketing, which is what influencer marketing really is or should be. It doesn't scale in the same way as media buys or advertising, traditional advertising, because human beings themselves don't. I mean, how do human beings scale? It doesn't work that way. If you've ever been, spent any time in this space, you hear Dunbar's number all the time. We can sort of manage a certain number of relationships, but we don't really manage millions and millions of relationships. We may have lots of little constellations of 100 people, but we don't, know 1 million people. Yeah. And the trick, I think, and this is something that we'll talk about more, I know, is to use that human relationship and then scale that content in some other way. Don't try to find scale in people because they don't really scale very well. Yeah. And they're messy, and there's, it's get your scale from using that content in ads or, repurposing it or boosting the posts that work well. There's lots of things we can do. So, there is fraud in anything that scale becomes so important and that's whether it's advertising or influencer or anything. The minute scale becomes the thing, people have to figure out how to get more of it for less, and that's when you end up getting some fraud. Those were our main 2 truths and a lie in terms of influencer marketing for today. I will tell you that I have not been to all 50 states, but I did watch General Hospital for years, and I have testified in Congress. So there are your 2 truths. And next time we meet, we'll make Greg share his.
I'll have some good ones for you.
Any last thoughts, Greg, before we click the
end
I think
button? It's a wonderful format. We'd love your comments and questions down below, and we promise to write them up and answer them at some point in the future.
Yes, and if anybody has an idea for 2 truths and a lie and would like to join us as a third I can do more than 2 people. We can have multiple guests. We can talk this through. We would love to have this conversation continue, and it's open to beyond influencer marketing, just digital marketing in general. And thank you so much for those of you that joined us live and took some time out of a sunny, hopefully sunny where you are, summer Thursday. And this will be posted on my Facebook page
and mine.
And Greg's, and then and it'll be all over LinkedIn because we'll have a version of this that'll be sort of massaged for LinkedIn and posted on LinkedIn. So thank you so much, everybody, and see you next week. Bye-bye.
All right, bye, everyone.